What is up? Hello and welcome to the Weekenders. Me and Bobby back for some football talk today. We are getting closer and closer with each show. We're in training camps now. We're getting to see some good stuff, some bad stuff. Some the talking points are starting to gather as we get closer to the football season. Bobby, how you feeling, man? We're another week closer to football.
Feeling great. Can't wait. We are in August. We will actually see football this month, and that is just the best feeling ever. So I'm thrilled.
Are you? You and I are huge football fans. I know you are significantly much more into college than NFL, but even as a huge NFL fan myself, I know the Hall of Fame game is in a few days. I will not be watching the Hall of Fame game. I think it's like one of those things where like I love the NFL, but like that's just you're watching like you know second stringers at best, like third, like really. I mean, not even second stringers. Sometimes they just throw the third and fourth stringers. Like it's so bad. Like I don't think the Panthers have never played a Hall of Fame game. I don't think. If they ever did, I probably still wouldn't watch because like the Hall of Fame game is just bad football. I just can't. I can't do
No, it's
it.
atrocious, and it's like I'll turn it on for the first drive, and then kind of remind myself, oh yeah, it's just preseason, and
Yeah,
then I'll get all excited for it just to watch football again, and it'll only take a drive or so, and then I'm out with it
yeah,
because
yeah,
yeah, but we do have that live college football action in week 0. Those games are garbage as well. That kind of the same vibe where you're like, oh, sweet, we get to watch Notre Dame and Navy. And then after like a couple quarters, you're like, never mind. I can wait a
yeah,
week for the real stuff.
yeah. The week zero Hall of Fame game stuff is tough. Is hard to watch. This year's Hall of Fame game is going to be recording this the day before the Hall of Fame game, but it's Jets and Browns. No, you're not going to see any names you really recognize except for maybe like Jacoby Brissett, who's the Browns' backup. Maybe some Zach Wilson fans can see him from a couple drives, but
all
that
four
that's
of
about it.
them.
Yeah, that's about it. That's about it. So, yeah, so we are literally a day away from football being played, and but still too early for to until the real games are played, both in college and in the NFL. But today we're gonna preview the AFC South, finish up the AFC, move on from that, um, and yeah, the AFC South is probably the worst division, one of the worst divisions in football, and not necessarily because I mean, yeah, the teams are bad, but it's more about the youth at the quarterback position. And so this year, three teams in the AFC South drafted who they hope to be their franchise quarterbacks, and the Texans who took C.J. Stroud, the Colts took Anthony Richardson, and of course the Titans drafted Will Levis on day two. And I don't like to uh, rain or I don't like to kick a man when he's down, but I was not. I felt like the draft class last year, um, there was like this weird level of like Malik Willis hype that I feel like was a little bit unwarranted based on um, some of his play, the school, the circumstances, and you know I don't know what Malik Willis's career will be, but I think it's interesting that the Titans did go ahead and take Will Levis with that pick, and Will Levis has a lot to prove too. I haven't closely followed that training camp battle, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, the Titans are apparently hoping that Will Levis can be that guy because I guess what they saw from Malik Willis wasn't enough last year. But anyway, my question and to me the biggest storyline for the AFC South is uh, the rookie quarterbacks. And so, Bobby, I want to ask you which quarterback in this rookie class are you most excited about? C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, or Will Levis?
So that's an interesting question because it's to me twofold. Because on one end, I think CJ Stroud's going to be incredible. I think we know what we have with him. He is a top tier franchise quarterback, and I think he'll do great things for the Houston Texans, who have sorely needed a quarterback. So if you're asking me which one I think will do the best, it's Stroud. Most excited to see though, that's Anthony Richardson for sure, because we've seen bits of his just insane play at Florida. His playmaking, both through the air and through the ground, like he is true exciting backyard football. And will that work in the NFL? I don't know. I mean, we've seen it work with guys, but will he translate to the league? It's a bit of a mystery, and that is something I'm just so incredibly excited to see how he fits with the Colts, because they haven't had a quarterback really like that in a long time. So that's going to be really fun to see. I'm thrilled to see what Anthony Richardson has up his sleeve.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson will be fun. I think Anthony Richardson, to me, like the hype that Malik Willis was getting 2 years ago, I felt like if Anthony Richardson had gotten that same hype, and at a certain level he did, but like I feel like people were really trying to make Malik Willis a thing. Like Anthony Richardson's hype, I feel like is close to that, but in my opinion, a little bit more warranted because he played at a SEC school, showed a lot of like talent both as a runner and as a passer, has an amazing arm, great kid, all that stuff. Like I don't necessarily love that like he's being compared to Cam Newton or whatnot because I feel like his college career, wasn't the same at all. And I feel like he still has a lot to prove, as a passer. I feel like Cam was a little bit further along, but I think that I get the excitement for having a quarterback like Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. I feel like they're going to make him the starter. Um, and the dynamic in Indianapolis is interesting because we have now Jonathan Taylor. Looks like he is going to hold out or force a trade out of there or whatever because he's not getting what he feel like he deserves as a running back, and which is a whole another conversation. Um, they had another injury to a running back in Indianapolis. I believe it was Hines that got injured. So um, I saw somebody make this point on Twitter, but Anthony Richardson, you know, would probably have been the guy anyway, but now even more so because if your top two running backs are gone, his skill set as a runner is going to pay dividends for the Colts. And so that'll be an interesting development to follow. And I think the team itself, like around Anthony Richardson, is young. I think there's a lot. If you're a Colts fan, there's a lot to be excited about because he's there. You've got young receivers and Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. Um, they've got a team that I feel like, especially on the offense, can grow together. So I think they'll be really fun over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, a little concerned about ownership. Jim Irsay to me
Yeah.
just doesn't. As time goes on and we get further and further away from, the Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning eras, I just don't know if he is a good owner. Like that, his statements after Jonathan Taylor's trade request kind of worry me a little bit.
Jim Irsay is one of those owners that I feel like I think people don't realize how much like luck is involved in the success of team sports. Like, is Jim Irsay okay? If we look at the Colts, since he bought the team, like, has he been the worst owner? Absolutely not. Like, he made a good decision to hire Tim Am I saying? Am I?
We're talking about
No.
Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy. What? Tim Dungy. He
It's all
he
good.
made a good decision in hiring Tony Dungy as coach, Bill Polian as GM. They made good decisions. Obviously, having the number one pick in the Peyton Manning draft was helpful, but I'm not saying we shouldn't give any credit to Irsay, but getting landing the number one pick in a Peyton Manning draft, and then landing a number one pick again in the Andrew Luck draft, like some of those things, I feel like people don't like always look at closely, and they're like, oh, this owner is good, this owner is bad. Well, like some owners aren't really that great. They just have better luck in the draft than, and they have things fall their way, better than others. Some owners are really smart and really savvy, and they make really good decisions. And the credit for having a good organization definitely falls on them. But sometimes you need other things to happen, and so I feel like that's happened with the Colts. There's other teams I can mention that has sort of happened to. But that's, again, I don't want to go on a tangent there, but I feel like Irsay gets a little bit too much. Maybe it's his warts are starting to show, for sure. While we're on this topic, I do want to say that um, I'm interested to see what Stroud and Levis bring to the table in preseason. I think Levis probably is the one out of these three who may not play in the regular season this year, because he'll. I mean, Levis is behind Tannehill, obviously, and Tannehill's been solid. So Levis is going to we're going to have to really watch him in the preseason, and then Stroud, of course, is still battling, with Davis Mills there in Houston. I feel like he should have no issue getting the starting nod, but I think while it's still a battle, uh, I think I'm excited to see the preseason from Stroud and from Levis in Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't beat Davis Mills, I have no idea what's going on there.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so let's get to the teams in the AFC South. We have their win loss records, or excuse me, their win total predictions from Vegas. We're going to say if we believe that they'll be over or under these win loss Vegas lines. And let's get into it, starting with the Texans, who Davis Mills led them to a whopping 3-13-1 record in 2022. Their Vegas line is 6.5. Um, are you taking the over or the under?
Right. So going into this, I had the under. I'm like right on the edge, and I think I've talked myself into going over. Um, and I don't. I think partially some of it is because the Texans, even though they won 3 games last year, they kind of weren't bad. Weirdly enough, they were like this. It was like they were trying. They wanted to be better, but they knew they had to tank, and they're being held back by that. And well, obviously having Davis Mills. But I love the draft they put together. Adding in Will Anderson, adding in CJ Stroud. It was just I think they've done enough to really bolster this team and to kind of get over that. I think they'll improve, and I think adding 4 games onto the last year's total when they're actually trying, you got a really you got a new situation, new culture shift. You got rid of I can't remember the name of the preacher who is basically puppeteering everything. They got him out of there.
Easterby, I think.
Yeah. Bring in D'Amico Ryans, so things are better. I kind of think the Texans take a little bit of a leap here, get 7 wins.
So I completely agree with you about their draft. Like, completely agree. Um, them landing Will Anderson was, great. They did some great things in the offseason, got some good pickups. Um, and, Will Anderson was being talked about as this generational defensive player. You get D'Amico Ryans as his coach. I think that could be a special defense quickly. Um, I have them at under 6.5. I feel like them going from 3 to 6, even with all the pieces they have, like that seems more reasonable to me instead of jumping from like 3 to 7 or 8 wins. Um, and I will mention this. Um, my only worry with the offense for Houston, and particularly CJ Stroud, we talk about the success of young quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks. I think we've seen a shift in the NFL where it's important for them to have a either a really good offensive head coach or a if they don't have that, if the head coach is a defensive head coach, then they have to have like a really really um, good offensive coordinator to not to succeed like overall, but like at least to have a fast start. I think we've seen that as a trend in the NFL. Um, so if D'Amico Ryans is the defensive head coach, I looked at I looked up who the assistants were. Offensive coordinator for the Texans comes from the 49ers, part of that Shanahan coaching tree. He Let me see if I can look it up real fast while I'm speaking here. But yeah, he didn't have a coordinator position in San Francisco. I believe he was just a passing game coordinator. That was his position before he came on as an offensive coordinator for the Texans. And this guy's name is Bobby Slovic. Um, so I will say that like I hesitate to. That's my one worry. It's like, all right, if you know Shanahan, we know is a brilliant offensive coach. If Bobby Slovic can sort of be, you know, one of these Shanahan disciples like Mike McDaniel or McVay or whoever, that like it can show like that they're about as competent as Shanahan is, then I think CJ Stroud is going to be in great hands. But that's the sort of the unknown. Like, again, if you have a defensive head coach and a young quarterback, that offensive coordinator, the QB coach, has to be really, really good. And so that's my one kind of like, I don't know, because we don't know like on the offensive side, like how good is this coaching staff? How are they going to be able to? How much are they going to be able to help him um, get off the ground? And I think CJ Stroud is talented. I'm not saying he needs a lot of help, but uh, we've seen the importance of having offensive coaches for young. If you have a young quarterback, in terms of them starting faster and getting it, and being able to win games early, like that uh, that connection in those first couple of years is so important. So that's my one kind of we'll see. Um,
That's a really good point. I'm in.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not all the way in because I think the Texans still find a way, but I that does kind of raise a bit of a red flag. So we'll see how it goes.
yeah, and I mean their schedule is not really that bad. I mean they're again we're gonna mention this for the entire show. The AFC South being kind of weak is allows you to sort of you could argue that they may split with their opponents in the division, or um, at the very least find a way to get a couple wins there. And then you're looking at games against the NFC South, which is also a bad division. So you maybe if you split with every team in your own division, that's 3 wins. Let's say you get a couple against the NFC South, you're already at 5, and then you have some other games against Pittsburgh, who is probably going to be a little bit better, but maybe not by much. Arizona, who's everyone thinks is going to be bad. Um, Denver, who was a question mark. Cleveland, who's a question mark. The Jets, who are a question mark. Like over would not surprise me, but I'll take the under there. But yeah, it's they gotta a pretty good, nice schedule, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed, agreed.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, no, that NFC South draw was pretty good at a great time. Um, not that I'm pretty down on that division.
Yeah, yeah. I think it works both ways. Like both of the two of the worst divisions of football play each other. Like we'll see how that breaks for them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're at the Colts now. The next worst team in the AFC South last year, 4-12-1. They, of course, we just talked about drafted Anthony Richardson. Have their new head coach is Shane Steichen, who was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. Was given a lot of the credit for Jalen Hurts and his success over the last couple of years. So now he gets Anthony Richardson, sort of what I just talked about, like young quarterback under a proven offensive coordinator, like that could go really well for them. But on the win column, we don't know yet. So their line is also 6.5. Um, Bobby, you and I both agree that they're going to be probably the under of that this year. Uh, Tell me why you kind of are leaning that way.
Well, frankly, I just don't see. I don't see the improvement yet, especially if Jonathan Taylor either sits out or gets traded. Yeah, I don't see it. I like Anthony Richardson as a project, but I think he needs time. We saw it at Florida. He would have moments of greatness followed by long periods of just not being that great. Um, and to me, I think I need to see that consistency at the next level before I can start feeling good about him and the Colts as a solid power in the AFC South. And I don't see the improvement there to really take a couple more wins. So that's why I'm sticking with the under.
Yeah, I have the under because I feel like, again, I don't know like how ready is Anthony Richardson to take the reins and start winning some football games as a passer. This situation now with their running backs, like I kind of said it earlier, you're going to call upon Richardson maybe to run around a little bit more, but um, they're going to need to have like a running game outside of him. What does that look like? You have a rookie head coach, um, proven coordinator. We don't know what that looks like from a head coaching standpoint. And I think there's a lot of questions on the defense. I mean, I feel like the defense kind of let the Colts down last year. I mean, especially that we kind of saw it replayed if you watch the quarterback documentary on Netflix. But that come from behind loss they had to the Vikings, like I think they were like that was like the biggest regular season like comeback ever. Like that was pretty bad. So that I mean defensively, like I don't know what they are. Um, Richardson, you don't know how many games he's going to be able to win as a rookie quarterback, and their schedule is a little bit tougher than Houston's is. They got to go to Cincinnati. They got to play in New England. Um, you know, they'll host the Rams, but I mean, yeah, I think that this is going to be another tough year from them. Maybe not as bad as last year, but I can't see them winning more than about 5 games.
Yeah, no, I agree. 5 is like my cap for them.
Yeah. All right. So the next team here is the Titans, who seem to like always just weirdly be good when no one expects them to be like good. Like I feel like there was a point last year where we like were doing a show where we were like, "Oh, the Titans are like 8-2," like, and no one's talking about this team. Like, they're just always like the team that's just like good, and like no one really kind of cares. But here we are again with the Titans. Um, Another year with Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Mike Vrabel, all the names you know, and a new addition to the team, DeAndre Hopkins, who was recently decided to signed with Tennessee after flirting with a few teams. Um, their line is at 7.5. Their record last year was 7-10. Um, they again, as we spoke about before, drafted a rookie quarterback in Will Levis, but I think the idea or the plan in Tennessee is let's see how good, or let's see if Ryan Tannehill is still going to be solid. If he gets injured or if he falls off, we can put Levis in. But right now, we want him to learn behind a veteran in Tannehill, who's been consistent for us over the last couple of years in the regular season, at least. So, both you and I have the over for Tennessee. What do you like about them this year?
Well, I like that they're I like that they're consistent. What Vrabel teams are, if they're anything, they're consistent. They might be a little boring. They might, completely fall to the back of your mind, but they win ball games. They're tough. They get things figured out. And to me, the addition of Hopkins just adds so much electricity to that offense. I think Tannehill still a serviceable quarterback. Obviously, if Derrick Henry stays healthy, he's just an absolute beast at running back. And to me, I just feel like if health can keep this team going, I think they're going to win a lot of games. Are people going to be happy about it? Probably not. They're probably ready for the Titans to go away because they're boring and they always get there. And then when they get to playoffs, they always choke. But I kind of think they bounce back again and have a pretty big season in the same vein as we've seen, their bigger seasons where they'll get the top seed, stuff like that. Challenge for, I don't want to say Super Bowl contention, but at least get a solid seed and then completely collapse in the playoff. But I think that's what we have to expect from the Titans is that consistent, win a bunch of the regular season, maybe make some noise in the regular season. That's about it. So
Tennessee is one of those teams where, like, if you're looking at a game on paper and you're like, oh, they're going to play the Chiefs or the Bengals, and they beat the Chiefs or they beat a good team, like, you're not really surprised. Like, they're such a weird team. It's like this is the one team in the NFL that can beat any team. Like, they can beat any team just because they've proven it over the last couple of years, especially with Vrabel. It's like, they're so hard to. I mean, I can't imagine like trying to bet Titans games because, like, I'm sure they, like every other team, they lose to teams they aren't supposed to, but they're so tough, like you said, so consistent. But it's interesting this year because the guys that we mentioned that sort of have led them over the last couple of years, like they're older and they're past their prime a little. So Tannehill, Henry, even Hopkins coming in, he's a little bit long in the tooth. So I expect production, but my question is like, what is their ceiling? Because now for a couple of years they were the only competitive team in the division. Now you're not because you have the Jaguars there, but the AFC is a lot stronger across the board now. So the Titans, I think the days of the Titans just being to your point, the days of the Titans just being like a sneaky number one seed or whatever, like those days might be over, but I don't think it'll surprise anybody if the Titans make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think their ceiling is past, their window's closed. But as long as they field this team, I think they're good enough to get some wins. I think they're good enough to cover that 7.5, win total. So that's kind of where they're at. Is until they get a quarterback that is truly of that level, and I don't think Malik Willis is, and I don't think Will Levis is, that can really take them to the next level. I just don't see them taking another leap with what they have because they keep staying the exact same team, which is good for winning, like just winning ball games, winning games in the regular season, but it's not good enough to actually win games that matter and actually progress in the postseason. And that's just kind of where they'll be stuck, is just right there, until Derrick Henry gets old and can't do what he does anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna need like they're probably gonna be too good. I mean, it depends. I think the future of the team is like interesting because I guess if Will Levis is bad, then like they'll be bad enough to like get a top pick and get talent. But like if Will Levis is average to good, then this team is going to have to like really, hit home runs deep in the draft. I do think that this year, like the Peter Skoronsky kid they drafted from Northwestern, like I love that pick for them. Like I think they had a good draft, taking him in the first round and then Levis in the second round. Um, I don't know like what Tannehill will be like, but at least like they got a guy for the future that's going to protect him. Um, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at their draft. Like I think they've not been bad at like taking guys that like contribute. I think it's just they're just going to be one of those teams that like have to do better in the later picks because they're probably it'll be hard to envision them in a situation where they're just like getting a top 5 pick, unless they get a trade or something. So anyway, for this year, I like the over for them as well. Over the 7.5. Again, they won 7 games last year. This team plays tough. Their schedule is going to be light again because of the having the AFC and NFC South, and then their tougher teams, the Chargers. They can get the Bengals. They can get, especially at home, Baltimore. They can get like it's. There's not a team on their schedule that really scares me. Um, at Miami, late in the year, uh, Seattle at home, like these are all teams the Titans can beat. The Titans just, like I remember a couple years ago, they just like obliterated the Chiefs. Like it wasn't even close, and everybody were like, "How is this team just like destroying people?" And like you said, in the playoffs, it's like night and day. But anyway, this is a really good regular season team. I think this is probably one of the easiest overs on the boards, and yeah, this is going to be an interesting team, uh, and probably a team that like is going to ruin some people's seasons too. I don't doubt that.
Oh, absolutely,
Um,
definitely. I'm
yeah,
sorry. I
yeah.
keep interjecting in whenever we make the
The
transitions
transition.
out.
No, no,
But
it's okay.
yeah,
It's okay.
let's talk
I
about some Jags.
yeah,
What do you
yeah,
think?
yeah. Jacksonville. I think this is the team where like most people expect them to win the division. You and I both have them uh, at the over. Let me ask you this: this is year 3 for Trevor Lawrence. People, this is the year where like people have to decide. Okay, is Trevor Lawrence closer to the guy we saw in the last 5 games of the season and in the playoffs, or is he closer to the guy we saw in his rookie year and the first half of last year, where like he was throwing a bunch of picks and he wasn't looking like the generational talent everyone says he was supposed to be? What do you feel like? What are your expectations for Trevor this year? What do you think? Um, which yeah,
So I'm gonna give him a mulligan for his rookie year
yeah.
because Urban Meyer, that whole situation was a disaster. So I can't blame the guy for, or anybody in that Jaguar system, for having an issue in the Urban Meyer. uh, can you call that an era? It was so small. I don't know if you can call it an era really, but whatever that was, more like it was the Urban Meyer fever dream of 2021. I can't blame Trevor Lawrence for struggling in that. I think he got a stride at the end of last year, and this Jaguars team is ready to kind of take a leap. Another favorable schedule. I feel like. Um, as for a lot of the reasons that we mentioned, I think the divisions match up well. Another year under Lawrence's belt, and I think he's gonna kind of start getting this thing clicking a bit. So I like Trevor Lawrence this year. I think he'll be pretty dang good.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to believe that he won't improve upon last year. I think he was in a terrible situation his rookie year. We all know that. I think Doug Peterson has done a good job. I think the playoffs. I mean, that comeback they made on the Chargers and then going toe to toe with the Chiefs. I think that's a good confidence boost for a young quarterback and a team and their team. I feel like the Jaguars. I'd like to see them get better weapons, like just a little bit. Like I'm not a big Christian Kirk guy. Calvin Ridley um, was nice in Atlanta, but I feel like there's probably another level that even he can go to that I haven't seen yet. And then you're talking about him not playing football for a year. Like, what is he going to look like? Obviously, they have Travis Etienne as well, a running back who can catch passes out of the backfield. So I feel like for long term, you like to see them kind of invest more. Um, or they've invested a lot, but I think I don't know if they've got the right people in the room. But anyway, yeah, you like to see them kind of get better in the weapons department. Maybe get them a franchise tight end as well. Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just remember they had Evan Ingram, and I was like, okay, yeah, they still need a franchise tight end because Evan Ingram was not it. But anyway, I keep going on tangents. Sorry. Uh, the Jaguars. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. I feel like will make the natural progression. I'm not. I will say that people are starting to anoint him as like a top 5 ish guy. Like I don't think that is where he is. I think reasonable expectations for him this year should be let him solidify himself as a top 10 guy. Like, top 10, 11, 12. Like, let him get there before we, go any further. Because that's going to be enough to win the division. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they perform in the playoffs again, building off of last year. So that's kind of my take on it. Both you and I have the over for the Jaguars as a team. 9.5. They could win the division at 9, but depending on how the Titans play this year, they may need to be a 10 or 11 win team in order to make the playoffs. Depending on what the Titans do.
Yeah, I think they're really set up to get this over. I'm very comfortable that, and not only that, I'm confident to say this. This is the easiest schedule in the league by far, is what Jacksonville has. Just look at their road games. What is the toughest road game out of these? At Indianapolis, at New Orleans, at Pittsburgh, at Houston, at Cleveland, at Tampa, at Tennessee. That's it, because they have a 2-game stretch where they go to London. So they play back to back in London. They play Atlanta in Wembley, and then Buffalo at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So you're ducking Buffalo. You don't have to go to Buffalo, which is great. Both of those games have no advantage because you just have a bunch of confused British people walking around, just happy to be there. So, it's a situation where they should be really good. They don't play their second true road game until the middle of October. So I think this Jacksonville team, schedule wise, set up for massive, massive success. They're one of the franchises that constantly goes over to London, so they have they have it kind of down pat by now. So I don't think that's that much of an issue. I just think this team could really, if everyone stays healthy and they really go off, they're not ready for true contention. Trevor Lawrence isn't ready for like you said, not ready for the top 5 quarterback debate, but they're good enough to win a lot of ball games, win this division, and I mean, they won a playoff game last year. I think that's about their ceiling again, but with a lot more regular season wins under their belt than last time out.
I feel bad for Jaguars fans because they have to share the Jaguars with London like at least once every year. So it's like, all right, you got 7 home games to choose from. The team is finally good again, and we still got to share with London every year. I'm glad that they gave. I mean, if they're gonna do 2 games in London, like I'm glad they made one of them a road game at least, a road game, so that way the Jaguars fans don't have to, not have another game, they can't go to. But I mean, yeah, I think that's. I mean, the way they schedule that is smart too because you're coming off of 2 home games, and then you go to London for 2 weeks. You get time to adjust the body and the time zone and everything like that. So by the time you get the Falcons as a tune up, and then the Bills after that. So yeah, I like that wrinkle in their schedule. But yeah, you're right. They're not going to have a tough road game um, after that, and I think this year's just going to come down to again how much Trevor builds off of the year before, and what is the growth of the defense like? Like, how are they going to support him? And I love the fact that Doug Peterson's there. I mean, because he knows what it takes to build a championship level team from the ground, which he did in Philadelphia. So I think if you're a Jaguars fan and you're hoping that like this team gets back into contention, like I feel like this is one of the best situations in terms of like all the teams with young quarterbacks in the NFL. This is probably one of the best situations you could ask for.
It's a really, really good organization to grow in the sense that the pressure is not the same as it would be in, like, say, Philadelphia, where you have to win or else the whole city wants to burn itself down. Um, in Jacksonville, I mean, they're passionate, they care, but for the most part, it's a little laid back. This is a franchise whose best quarterback, they still have warm, fond feelings of Blake Bortles. So it's not exactly, you're not. Trevor Lawrence might already be the best quarterback they've ever had in terms of pure skill. So, um, yeah, they don't have. It's not a high bar to clear every time. Not a lot of pressure, which can be good for development and just go out, work on getting better, and have plenty of patience to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this should be a really fun year for them, and um, I think from an organizational standpoint, you want to succeed while your quarterback is on a rookie contract and while the division's bad. Like this is the time where you have to go take the bite at the apple. And again, Doug Peterson has been in this situation with Philadelphia. They went all in while Carson Wentz was on the rookie deal, while the division was in the NFC East wasn't good. Like they went for it, and so we'll see what happens. I'm not saying that this is going to be a Super Bowl year for the Jags at all, but I think they're heading in the right direction. And if they can get to an 11-win season this year, even a 10-win season, which would be an improvement on last year, like that's kind of what that shows you're trending in the right direction for sure. And
Yeah,
that's what you want as a Jaguars fan.
yeah. I will say, future wise, I would be worried because immediate future wise, because they're about to put a massive renovation of well, let's just call it the Gator Bowl. They're about to just put like a $2 billion renovation on the thing, make it super nuts. So not only one is the owner spending like $2 billion on the team to build the stadium, but now you're having to move to either the options I've seen are you have to go to Gainesville, Florida to play at the Swamp, or maybe Daytona Beach, play at the Daytona Speedway, which I have no idea how that'll work. I saw that this summer and I'm like, this makes no sense. So yeah, they have no idea where they're going. So of course, naturally, as the Jackson Jaguars do, once the football side starts to level out, now something else has to come in and make things absolutely crazy and unpredictable. So I would be a little worried because that money probably should be going towards putting weapons around Trevor Lawrence, shoring up the defense. But if they can do both, if Shad Khan could do both, there's going to be some good times in Jacksonville because the pieces are there.
And I think if Trevor Lawrence is a lifetime Jaguar and he brings playoff runs and Super Bowls to the team, then the money you're spending now will all be worth it because they're going to revitalize the area, revitalize the franchise. It's going to be worth more. It's just going to be better. I'll say this: I think the Jaguars uh, playing in Gainesville at the Swamp is fascinating, but I think even if Trevor Lawrence is like becomes like Mahomes level, like, and the team is just like winning all the time, I don't know. Like the Jaguars fans are so fair weather. I don't know if that that stadium will ever be full because that's
Are
like a
there
90,000 seat stadium. Like I don't know if Jaguars fans have troubles filling their own stadium. So
are
with
there
20,000 more
100,000 Jags
seats,
fans? Are there 100,000 Jags fans like in the area that could go there?
that's yeah, that's my biggest question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and apparently Gainesville is just like awful to get in and out of for game day. Like the infrastructure is not there, but we'll see how all that plays out.
I think they should just go down to South Florida and share city with Miami for a couple of years. Like
Oh man,
that
they could play
that'd
at
be fun.
FIU. They could play at FIU.
Yeah. Or either that or Tampa. They should share for a year.
You can
Uh
always go to Orlando.
that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
UCF. Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's so funny. All right, cool. Well, that is the teams, the over under. So just to recap for the audience, we had I had the Texans at under their 6.5 win loss total by Vegas. Bobby has them at the over. The Colts line was 6.5. Bobby and I both have the Colts going under this year. The Titans line is 7.5. Bobby and I both have them going over. And the Jacksonville Jaguars line is 9.5. And Bobby and I are both believers in T Law. And we have the Jaguars going over this year. Now, let's move on to the superlatives of the AFC South. And we're going to start with AFC South MVP. Obviously, not a real award, but let's talk about like who the best player or who the most valuable player in the AFC South will be. Um, we just talked about him. We talked about your guy, Trevor Lawrence. Uh, Bobby, we want to give a reason why he'll be the MVP of the AFC South.
Yeah, I think he just does so much with that offense, and as you mentioned, he doesn't. It's not exactly like he's surrounded with like all of these weapons, and I think he does enough to power the Jags to a really good record. I think the record helps, or the schedule helps. I think it's very light, very forgiving, but I think he takes advantage of that and pulls them to a lot of wins and a lot of recognition. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely an easy pick because we know the trajectory that Lawrence is on. He's a quarterback. I think that I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. For my AFC South MVP, this is more wishful thinking, but I went with DeAndre Hopkins. Um, he is in a new setting. Um, Last time we saw him in Arizona before the injuries and stuff, like he was balling out. If he can continue his to show that he's like still in his prime, still one of the best receivers in the league, I think he can make a huge difference for the Titans, who need a guy that can like break the game open. Questions at quarterback, running game suspect. We don't know what Derrick Henry will be like. Hopkins can definitely be a catalyst for that offense and for that team. And I think like what he brings to the table, um, like we'll see it. And if it's kind of like what we saw from him a couple of years ago, then I think they can change the game for the Titans. So I think this is a different pick for MVP. I think Hopkins can definitely be in there for sure. Um, all right, Coach of the Year. Uh, I'll go and give mine. Uh, so for the AFC South Coach of the Year, I'll stick with the Titans and say Mike Vrabel. Uh, we talked about it. Aging quarterback, aging running back, receiver. We don't know what Hopkins will be like. For I think it's been impressive that Vrabel has gotten so much out of the Titans as is, but I think especially this year, where it feels like the Titans may be in more of a transition phase and may not necessarily be competing for anything of significance. If Vrabel can go in there and be like, get like 10, 11, 12 wins out of this team, their line is 7.5, I, and just like go in and overachieve, like it'll just show that like Vrabel's should get more respect as one of the best coaches in the NFL. And yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I think Vrabel uh, probably is a candidate for not only AFC South Coach of the Year, but NFL Coach of the Year if he's able to, uh, keep that team not just afloat, but like actual contenders, in the NFL. So
Yeah, I like Vrabel. I think that's a solid pick, for keeping things steady and even. And you're right, he doesn't get nearly enough credit, but when you win at a high level over and over again, that's kind of what happens. I'm going to go with a flashy kind of pivot though, because I feel like with Coach of the Year you have two different things: the best and then the one that changes the most. And I'm going to go with D'Amico Ryans. I am. So many people were really really high on this guy prior to him getting hired. Comes from a great system in San Francisco and has a great tie to the Texans organization itself as a former player. And to me, I think he does a lot of great things here with Houston. I think he starts turning this thing around where this team actually starts getting wins. They look like an actual football team and not just a joke that's trying to tank. And I think they put he puts the Texans in a positive direction and gets them on the right track. So I think that for me will be good enough to give him Coach of the Year.
D'Amico Ryans, like he's so well respected. I think again, like I'll be looking at D'Amico Ryans the most is like, what's he gonna do with that defense in Houston? I think Will Anderson is a great start. I think they have great players over there already. Like I'm so fascinated by what he's gonna do there, and like low key, like excited to see. Because he's got a big job ahead of him. I mean, like turning around a franchise who's kind of been like who had so much hope with Deshaun Watson, and then it kind of like crumbles like with all the scandal, and now he has a chance to go in, press the reset button with Stroud and with the defense. Like, I'm looking forward to see what he does there. I'm going to be honest. Like, Houston's like one of those franchises that kind of um, has had some good years, but never really seems to like get completely on track. Like, I'm interested to see kind of what he's able to do there. Um, all right, so the next superlative, the winner of the AFC South. I think both you and I agree on that. It'll be the Jaguars. I mean, again, like I said, remember the Titans. Watch out for them. But I feel like the Jags. We both feel like the Jags are.
Here's my prediction. Here's my prediction for that. I think it comes down to the last game of the season, which is Jacksonville and Tennessee. So I think it goes the distance completely. I think both of those teams are just really good, but I think Jacksonville just has a higher ceiling. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, Jacksonville, Tennessee at Tennessee. Yeah, that'll be that could be definitely like one of those ones. To the side of the South. I agree with you. That definitely it could come down like that for sure.
Yeah, if you play fantasy football, get a Colt or get a Titan or a Jag, and you'll have somebody on that last week. So
yeah. All right. Last place in the AFC South. We both agree on that, and it'll be the Colts. I think to me, it just comes down to I need to see I need to see what I think. I think the Colts and Texans are dealing with the same thing: rookie coach and rookie quarterback. However, I feel like the Colts have a little bit more work to do than the Texans. Not a lot, just a little bit. So I feel like the Colts will be last place. It could be close. Uh, Maybe the Texans Colts game at the end of the year decides who's the last place, and the Titans Jaguars game decides who's the first place. But I think the Colts are have a little bit more to work with. Again, Anthony Richardson not as refined as a prospect as C.J. Stroud uh, is or was. So uh, easy pick for me. Colts in last place.
Yeah, I agree. They just not enough improvement, and I think they will have some improvement, but the roster to me just hasn't done enough to jump them out of last. So yeah,
Yeah, they need to do a lot of work on the defense as well. All right, how many playoff teams are coming out of the AFC South? So I feel like this was always going to be my answer, but based on our earlier prediction shows, I looked back and I realized I've predicted two playoff teams to come out of every other division, and there's only 7 playoff teams that can go. So based on that, I only have one spot, and I feel comfortable with the pick. I feel like the Jaguars or whoever wins the division is going, and that's probably going to be it.
yeah. I don't remember my math on it, but I'm gonna go ahead and say two because I think the Jags and Titans. I could see both of them getting in. I feel like I went under on one of them where everyone else went over. So I think I have one available. Could be totally wrong, but I like both of them to go.
If two if two were to happen, I think it's because the AFC South has the easiest schedule, and so you take care of business um, with the schedule, and then those games. I believe they play the AFC North this year, so it'll be like, all right, AFC North, AFC South. If two teams are going to go, it'll be because they like the Titans and the Jaguars steal some wins against Baltimore or the Browns or whoever. Like I feel like it'll either be two out of the North or two out of the South, but not both. If that makes sense. Like it's one or the other.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And I will say it is interesting because the Titans and Jaguars both get the Bengals at home. So, and I think, let's see, I think the Titans play Baltimore overseas. And then the Jags also played Baltimore at home. So the two toughest teams in the AFC North have to go to AFC South, the two contenders. So I think that benefits them a bit. It'll be intriguing to see how it all shakes out, though. Um, and I think right now, if I had to pick between Baltimore, 2 out of the 3 of Baltimore, Jacksonville, and the Titans, I think I kind of lead towards the Jags and Titans. I think that sounds crazy. I don't know. I I think that's going to be a really good playoff race, though.
It's not crazy to me because I don't know. Like the Ravens have a good defense, but so do the Titans. And then my thing is Lamar Jackson is a winner. Like he knows how to win games. I'm not doubting his ability, but I still don't like their offense. Like I don't like the running back situation. They got OBJ, but I feel like OBJ is past his prime. Like, it's not 2013 anymore or 2014 anymore, whatever his rookie year was. Like, I'm just not really convinced that like the OBJ we're going to see in Baltimore is like, the OBJ that was making one finger catches in New York. Like, I think he's past that guy, and he's been hurt a lot too. So like, I have trouble trusting Baltimore. What I trust more, and it is crazy when you say it out loud, but I think I trust more like Vrabel and just the like consistency of the Titans more than like Baltimore. Although I feel like Lamar Jackson is going to be the best chess piece on the board. So yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's our show. That's the AFC South preview. Keep it locked here though, because there's more football. We're going to be talking more previews to do before the season kicks off on the NFL and the college football side. And yeah, until next time, it's me and Bobby, Lexi. We are gonna be excited when she's back. I didn't know what to say. I was gonna be like, hope she's not sick. I was like, what do I need to say? Yeah,
she took a vacation.
Yeah,
she took a vacation.
She went to college like
Steve from Blue's Clues.
Yeah.
Oh man! Oh no!
Nah. We'll be excited for Lexi to be back. But it's just gonna be fun. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Multiplicity Media, The Weekenders. We'll catch you guys.